So in Montreal, that's where your family is from, I guess. You've been documenting your trips and traveling all kinds over the years. So tell people like where it all started in Montreal. Why did you start this journey on, growing an influence, a following? Like, is it something that you planned? Was it
Yeah.
organic? And where has it kind of gotten you today? Because you have over 280,000 followers on social media in the travel space specifically. You not only, have influence, but now you have that business where you're taking people on adventure tours, and then all of these other
Yeah.
side projects with your presets, your guides, tips and tricks, like you name it. It's all the things that you need for travel, but it's so specific to you and like how you see the world. So I'd love for people to kind of get a general idea of where it all started and how you kind of got to where you are.
Yeah. It started I would say I always had a passion for travel, but it like really started in 2014. I was working full time in like a corporate job. I was also teaching and competing in pole dancing back then.
Fun.
And so, yeah, it seems like a lifetime ago, like almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so in 2014, I won the Quebec Championship, and then I went on to compete in the Canadian Championship. And it was incredible, but I had devoted so much of my time to focusing on pole, and I was just like tapped out.
Mm.
I was really, really exhausted. And then at the same time, my job kind of became obsolete. I
What
was
was it?
working for, I was working as an assistant buyer for for a brand, and
Hmm.
the brand was no longer acquired by the company that I was working for. And so anyone who was on that like team was kind of like trying to find new places in the company to kind of shift. So they moved me around a bit with my background in like visual merchandising and stuff. And then eventually it just like, I wasn't happy. We were just, I was in limbo and I was like, it's not working out. So it was
Hmm.
mutual. And after competing in the Canadian Championship, I was like, I just need a break. And I booked a one-way ticket to Bangkok. And it was only supposed to be a couple of weeks. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go refresh. It was like a solo trip, and I just had so much fun that I just kept canceling and kept delaying my flights home. And a couple weeks turned into 3 months, and
Wow.
you know, at a
How
certain
old were
point,
you
my
at the
best
time ish?
I can't remember. I was
Around
like early
early
20s.
20s? Yeah, because that's a big
Yeah,
step to be able to just go. And like I know you're a huge like fan of
yeah,
solo travel, but that's a big leap. And
yeah.
then to stay that long.
Well, it was a big leap because I'd done travel, but not
Yeah.
really solo travel. Like I had done a
Hmm.
couple of trips where I had gone to like let's say France by myself, but then I met like a girlfriend who was living in the UK. I met her there. So I had like a couple like a
Right.
week alone and then I met her. But this was
Hmm.
like fully on my own in like Southeast Asia. I had never been there before. Like I had been to Europe before.
Hmm.
Um and it was so fun. So like when you're traveling solo, like it sounds scary, but like you're never really alone because like at the time I was in like my early like mid 20s and I was staying in hostels and so you're constantly meeting people
Yeah.
and so your plans are always adapting. You're always meeting people. Hey, like I'm going here, like do you want to come? Oh, sure. Like so you kind of just like you kind of go with the flow. And so I just kept canceling my flights. And at a certain point, my best friend from home was like, that's it. Like, you keep canceling. This is so frustrating. Like, where are you going to be next? I'll just come meet you.
Nice.
And I was like, oh, yeah. I was like, oh, I'll be in Bali. Like, why don't you come to Bali? And so she flew down to Bali for a week, which I don't recommend anyone goes for a week.
Yeah,
It's like not
that's
enough time.
that's
Such
rough.
a long flight.
I've been to Bali I think 3 times now. So
Yeah,
like yeah, and each time got longer and each time got like more
exactly.
expensive.
The last time I was there last year and I was there for 4 months, like it just like keeps
Holy.
prolonging and
Yeah.
yeah, it's another place that I could see myself living. Like I just love the quality of life there.
Yeah.
And we just had such a great time. And I remember before taking this trip, um, I was working at Lululemon and then I took this corporate job and I was talking to girlfriends and Lululemon is really big on goal coaching. And so I was saying to them, like, I really want to take this trip. Um, no, sorry, I already had the camera. So I had the camera from my Europe. I'm like, wait, no, no, no. I'm mixing the stories up. I had the camera from my solo trip to Europe already. And so I was already kind of into photography. My grandfather was really into photography. So I had
Oh, nice.
I had a passion for travel. I had a love for photography. And so I would, when I was traveling, I was taking these pictures, but they were mainly landscapes, or I would get someone to take a picture of like the back of my head, like I was
Right.
standing in the frame,
Yeah.
like back then
That was
everyone
like
had,
Pinterest
and
days.
yeah. And a girl was like, okay, what is it? Like, why am I taking pictures of the back of your head? Like,
Yeah,
what gives? Like, look at the camera. And I was like, oh, like for me, Instagram was kind of, I wasn't one to write long letters home. Like my brother would do that when he would travel. And I was like, I was really into photography. So I was like, okay, like Instagram's kind of a photo journal for me. So I
Mhm.
just told my parents, I was like, just like keep up, like follow me on Instagram or whatever, and I'll post updates and whatever. And so that's kind of how friends and family saw my trip,
Cool.
was through social media.
Hmm.
And when I got to Bali, they're just so proud of their island that
Yeah.
my photos were getting reposted all the time on
Oh,
these different
yeah.
repost accounts.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and I had never like the term influencer wasn't really a thing back then. This was like 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
I was just sharing organically for like friends and family back home to like see what I
Hmm.
was up to. And so it just kind of slowly started growing, kept posting, really enjoyed it, was getting reposted, started growing little by little. And when like all of that content kind of fizzled out, I was like, okay, like I kind of like this. I had never really been in front of the camera before, but I kind of enjoyed the creativity of
Yeah.
like framing my picture and having a whole concept and then getting in
Like
and just
editing,
kind of
adjusting
editing
colors, like that
everything.
was like
Like
a big thing. Yeah. Because the presets, you
I
were
learned
selling presets
everything
too.
through YouTube.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So then in 2017, I started selling presets, and that was like I think I was one of the first people to start selling. There wasn't very many people selling presets at the time. And now I
Hmm.
look back on those presets and like, wow, my editing has come a long way. But it's
Things
so
have changed,
funny.
but
Like
also stylistically, like
yeah,
the style, it changed too.
exactly.
We used to always do kind of like the orangier skin and like the
Exactly. The teal
turquoise
and orange.
skies. I'm
Yeah.
there with
And
you. I did the
so
same thing.
So like my editing style has changed a lot. Like I think as a whole, like we've shifted, and so like
Yeah.
I've gotten better. But it's so interesting to hear. Like I'll still get messages from people being like, "Oh, I bought your first presets. I still use them." I'm like, "What?"
Oh
Like
shit.
I'm like, "Please
You're
no.
like,
Like I'll
please
send you
buy
a
the
new pack."
updated pack.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. But yeah, it's interesting. So that's kind of how it all started with my like social media. When I had
Was there
left
like
and
a
went
light bulb
traveling.
moment? Sorry, but was there like a light bulb moment that kind of like something shifted and you're like, wait a second, like I can do this as a career?
I Not really a light bulb. I just realized like so when I got back, I started working again and I was trying to balance it all. So I was working like a corporate job and like during the 9 to 5. Then I would leave at 5, go teach pole dancing at the studio from 6 to 10, and then on the weekends I would create content. So like I was hustling,
Mm,
and it got to a point where I loved it, but I was like, okay, if I really want to see if there's like a chance, like I need to like really invest 100% of my energy into this. And my parents were kind of like, what the hell are you doing? And I
yeah.
was like, okay,
Yeah.
like I give me 6 months. Like if I make no money in 6 months, like I will gladly go back to work. But I was like, I just need to try something for
Hmm.
me. Um, and I started small. I was like, you really kind of I honed in on like what am I actually good at? Like, okay, I don't have the following right now. Like I had like maybe 3,000 followers. So I was like, I can't really like work with brands on that level. Like I was doing like so I started doing UGC like way
Hmm.
back then. I was like, I know I have a professional camera. I know how to take photos. So it's more than just girls who are doing with their iPhone. So I started creating content for brands, and I would reach out to like like small brands who were like maybe just starting out, who had like a smaller budget, but then it was exposure for it was like practice for me. It was they were getting something out of it that wasn't going to cost them an arm and a leg. And so I started working with these brands that way, and then eventually the following kept growing because I would reshare everything and
What were some of the
Yeah, it was
brands? Like,
just,
what was one of the first, I guess, like campaigns or collaborations that you did? Do you remember?
um, I did one. I'm trying to think the first. So like I was working with this clothing brand in Australia, and that was like or they're Bali based,
Okay.
but they're an Australian brand, and they were like the first people to really take a chance on me. And so like I still work with them to this day, and
Oh,
I just
fun.
do gifting with them. Like I don't charge them anything, just because like they were the first to believe in me. It was so
Yeah.
fun. But early on, I did a job with Sephora, which was really, really cool. That was like a huge highlight for me. And I was so nervous about this brand deal because it was for a perfume. And at the time, like 2016, 2017, like you weren't really like travel influencer. I was like, oh, like I can't be wearing like pretty dresses or really showing off my style. Like travel influencers are basically just like jean shorts and flip-flops, like
Like
super, super
backpacker.
casual.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, like now I'm like, why did I ever think that? Like people follow you for your
Hmm.
like for who you are. Like they want to see
Yeah.
your own sense of style. And so I would like turn down things because I was like, oh, like this big dress, like it doesn't make sense to wear this dress. Like, and now like people wear these like ball gowns in like the most
Yeah.
ridiculous places. But I was really nervous about it because it was a perfume deal and I had never done something so sponsored that was like a physical product. Like
Mhm.
wearing clothes was pretty easy, travel stuff was pretty easy, but like that was like stepping into lifestyle and I was so nervous about it.
What were
And
you
it was
so
one of
nervous
my
about? What were you nervous about being in front of
that
the
it was like
camera?
so no that it was going to be like so too sponsory for my
Okay.
audience
Okay.
because I was like I had to hold the physical product and I
Talk
was like I
about
don't want it to
it.
be like
Yeah.
cheesy, like I didn't want it a selfie, and it ended up being one of my best performing like photos. It was insane. They were so happy with it. Like it got so much engagement. I like the entire team, my management was like shocked. We were like,
Yeah.
okay, like this is great. And I kind of incorporated like the scents were really like coconut and vanilla and stuff. And I had taken it to Dominican Republic and I had shot it on the beach. And so I had like
Oh, there
incorporated a
you
lot of like
go.
sand and coconut shells and like it just really made it aesthetic. And they ended up buying images as well from me for the I think it was called Primrose,
Yeah.
the
It,
brand. They ended up buying images because they loved like the styled flat
yeah,
lays
the
that I did.
aesthetic. I mean, it goes to show that anything, I mean, so long as you feel like it aligns, can be somewhat like modified or morphed into your brand, right? Because instead of just taking the perfume and
Yeah,
standing there, like probably the reason why it performs so well is because you integrated it in your lifestyle and the type of content that
yeah,
people are used to seeing. So instead of you just standing there holding and being like, buy this perfume, you did this whole series on the beach and people were like, wow. And they were able to connect and relate and be like, wait, maybe I could take this on my next trip. Like it's perfect for travel, blah, blah, blah. Like building that story is so important. And
well,
I'm sure
that's
like
it.
over the years, you've obviously like developed that thing. Like I run a creative agency and we build brands as like companies, but then you also built your personal brand and you're working in collaboration with other brands to find that like perfect harmony where you're
Hmm.
not necessarily just like selling to sell to make money, but because you feel like it's in line with like who you are as a brand, which is super important,
Yeah,
right? Because that's where people get dropped off these days. It's like that lack of authenticity. Like people can see through every ad now. Like if it's not
yeah,
authentic and genuine and it doesn't align, you're swiping. Like it's so
yeah,
oversaturated that like people just see through it.
yeah. No, 100%. And that's why, like, when you think of it, like, travel encompasses so much. Like,
Mhm.
just because I'm traveling doesn't mean that I don't want my 7-step skincare routine. Doesn't mean that I
Yeah,
don't want this. But for a long time, I was like, oh no, like, travelers don't do that. But I'm like, maybe just
there's a
with age,
way.
I was like, no, like I do that. Like, yeah. And it's also like for a long time, everyone just kept saying, like, stick to your niche, stick to your niche, stick to your niche. But then I was like, I'm so much more than just travel. Like, there's
Mhm.
so many other facets that I want people to get to know. And then when I started sharing that, that's when it started really like people resonated so much. So I started talking about mental health. I started sharing my fitness journeys. I started, talking about like whatever I was going through. Like it was not just about like the really good days. Like some days I just like I had a really shit day and I would talk about it and it like that's when I started really building like a strong bond with people.
Hmm.
Was just
Do you
like
have a
being
lot of
open and
people
honest.
that like reach out to you in your DMs and relate to your experiences and things like that?
hmm I had a lot when I was going through some mental health struggles.
Hmm.
And so I moved to Mexico in December of 2020. And it was partially because of that. I was just really, really struggling here in Montreal. I had been through something extremely traumatic and I just wasn't thriving here. Like I was so triggered being here that I was like, I need to get away. I need to get away from other people's opinions. I need to like be with my own thoughts. I just need to like stand on my own 2 feet right now.
Hmm.
And so Mexico was meant to only be a 1 month trip again.
Again.
But yeah, this always happens to me. I'm like, I need to always pack for 5 months because every time I say 1 month, it's never a month. But COVID just got so bad. And so I went and, the end of the month was coming up and everyone back home, friends, family were like, honestly, you look like you're thriving in Mexico. Like, don't come home because there was curfew, there was lockdown, there was just like
Yeah.
so much, and everyone was miserable here. And that's kind of what sparked the group trips was me being in Mexico and just like living my life and thriving, and Mexico being one of the places that was wide open for people to travel to.
Mm.
I had to kind of pivot with my business because there was no more travel, there was no more like campaigns, there were no more tourism boards reaching out, and so yeah, it was a
So
little
what
bit
is
scary during that time.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But so what is the bulk of your business? So I know that you have like currently you're focusing on planning these trips for people, and we'll talk a little bit more in
hmm
detail on like what those look like and how much they cost, things like that. But I mean, from like before that, how did you get introduced to the idea? Did you like what inspired you to go down this path aside from the fact that obviously like things shifted because of COVID?
hmm I had done group trips before. So with a girlfriend of mine, she used to have a company called Pangea Dreams, which no
Why does
longer
this sound
exists.
familiar? This sounds
Uh,
familiar.
do you know Tracy Comlos?
Wait, didn't you do a retreat in Bali or something? What did you go to Bali with her?
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
that was.
yeah,
This is
yeah.
years ago.
This is
Was
you.
this
This is
was
wow.
this
That's a
that
good
first
memory
trip?
because that's 2017. That was I had gone to Bali with Tracy before, and so that was like the start of us creating content, really seeing if this is like posing differently, getting in front of the camera and stuff. And then we had started this thing in 2016. She had said to me and one of my friends, she said, "Look, I have this idea. I want to create content for brands, but I can't do it alone. Like, will you guys come with me to Bali?" And so 2016, we went to Bali and we brought like anything you could think of that you could create in Bali. So it was like beach towels, sunscreen, hats, bikinis, flip-flops, like everything. And for like 2 weeks straight, we created content. And we
Oh,
were all
cool.
self-taught photographers.
Hmm.
And at the end of that trip, we had so much content that we were just like constantly posting Bali. And that's kind of how things started like growing. And then in 2017, she had started doing these group trips. I think we had started building a following. So in 2017, uh, I must have I think I had hit 100K, like around there. And,
So that must have been one of your
and
like biggest jumps, right? Because you were at like 2000 and what 2000 you said 2015 or 14, something like that.
mhm.
So in a
I
span of
went
a few
to,
years, that was a big jump.
yeah, when I hit 10K, it happened quite quickly. So I think it was like when I hit 10K, from 10K to 100K, it might have taken like 11 months or something. And then from 100K to 200K was like 9 months. Like it just,
Oh,
and now obviously like things have changed, the
yeah.
algorithm has changed, and
So
so it's
that's
not
pretty
as
quick.
easy.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was quite quick. I was like really, really shocked. Um, but we had done so the first trip that her and I did together was in 2017 in Mexico in Tulum. And
Hmm.
Tulum did not look like the way it looks now in 2017. It was just starting and we hosted the first trip and it's so cool because I'll still chat with some of the girls who were on those trips.
Oh, wow,
And
fun.
then we had so much fun, such great success that in 2018 we did Bali and we did two back-to-back trips because the first one sold out and that was so fun. These trips were a little bit more workshop based.
Mm-hmm.
So I would teach workshops on how to edit in Lightroom, how to build a media kit, how to reach out to brands. And so they were a little bit more on the lines of like how to become an influencer or work remotely, work in the social
Yeah.
media field.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously we would take beautiful photos and stuff as well. And so I had that experience with those trips already. And I had seen the power of community. And I've always been a community builder. I've always loved people. I'm
Mm-hmm.
very extrovert. So for me, like that's it's such a lonely part of the job to be on your phone all the time, not really like conversating with everyone. So I love when I get to host these trips and
Yeah.
bring people together because it also like fuels my cup to be able to be surrounded by really incredible, inspiring people, have different perspective, different experiences. And so when 2020 hit, I realized that there was like a huge outcry for that because I was getting messages all the time being like, I am living for your content. I'm so inspired by you in Mexico.
Because
I feel
everyone was
like I'm
trapped at
drowning
home.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I had started to say, like, well, why don't you come meet me in Mexico? And I had just put
I
it
should have
out there. I was
messaged
like,
you.
hey, yeah, you should have. And so I had started putting it out to people, and I was,
Yeah.
I had been in Mexico for so long at that point, that I started working with the Mexican Tourism Board. They were super happy because they were like, you're like single-handedly like driving tourism back to like the island of Cozumel was suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And I started going there because I organically just loved the island. The free diving there is incredible. The ocean there is like spectacular. I found this little cafe that I loved their coffee. And so like I just started talking about it and started driving tourism there and not even knowing. And then I would get tagged in these videos of people being like, I got your peanut butter coffee. I'm going to the cafe. Like it was so fun. And I was like, I've never had so much pull on anything in my life. And it's coffee and I'm not even getting any like affiliate, nothing. It was like, and so they reached out and they were like, this is incredible what you're doing. Like, tell us why you love Cosmo so much. And so they brought me back. They showed me like different parts of the island. And then I was like, okay, like with their help, I was like, I really want to start running a trip.
Yeah.
And I said, like, could you help me with these contacts? Like, I had a contact for a guide, but then they got me in touch with like the ferry company and they got me in touch with this person. And like these restaurants were the ones that they recommended on the island. And like all of these different like, oh, we think you should really do this cultural experience. I think your
Mm-hmm.
people would really like it. And so we ended up curating a really beautiful itinerary. And then I ended up being able to bring, I think we had like on the first trip, I think we had 8 girls.
Fun.
And it was so much fun. Yeah. And so the
So they
trips have
reached
just
out to
kind of,
you
oh,
organically just because you were posting
yeah.
and putting yourself out there, and then they found you. And so that's when you were probably like, wait a second, I can keep doing this, and then building these
Yeah.
bigger trips around the world. So anytime you're going, are you connecting with the tourism board? Is that what I'm understanding? Like, you basically had to build those relationships and connections with every
Yeah.
destination, right?
So exactly. So I'll always go to a destination prior, like a year
Yeah.
prior, figure it out. And so like these trips have been like years in the making because it's been time that I've had to curate these relationships and really find the right people. And
Hmm.
so with Egypt, for example, this is the third trip that I do to Egypt and I absolutely love it. Like my dad was born there. I feel like such a connection to the country.
Yeah.
And I just think that it's so many people have fear over going to the Middle East, particularly women.
Hmm.
And I think that it's so incredible when you can go as a group and like I'm not fluent in Arabic. I barely speak any Arabic. I know how to say I'm Egyptian, but I don't speak Arabic. That's as much as I know how to say it.
Yeah. Well, good enough.
Um, eh, yeah, it gets me by. People are like, huh?
They're like, all right, bye.
Um, yeah, but I met this incredible guide that I use back in 2019 when I first went. And I said to him in 2019, I said, like, I'm not sure how, but I want to find a way to work together because I loved his experience so much. And he was like the best. I've obviously been around the world on so many trips, and he was the best guide that I had ever had. And so I
Hmm.
said, I don't know how yet. And like, I hadn't even hosting trips was not even on my radar again. And I was like, I don't know how, but we're going to find a way to work together because I feel like more people need to have you or have your experience.
Hmm.
And so that was since 2019, him and I had been in touch trying to like coordinate or just like keeping up with each other. And then when 2020 happened and I started these trips again, Egypt just was like the next logical choice for me. It was like there were so many people saying like, I really want to go to the Middle East, but I'm scared. And you know,
Yeah.
your trip looked incredible. And so connecting with him was amazing. Uh, but yeah, like I've had been through the entire experience with him before. I've vetted all the hotels. I've gone to like the restaurants. I've done all of the excursions. Same thing with like now I'm running a Jordan trip. Last year I went to Jordan. Last year I met the guide. I went, did the whole trip,
Yeah.
kind of saw everything, saw if like we vibed, if I really liked him as a guide, if I thought he was helpful, he understood like what my group kind of needs. Like, yes,
Hmm.
we want the history, but there's also a lot of people who are really into photography. So
Yeah.
things are going to go a little bit slower. We need a little bit
Yeah.
more time taking photos. Like,
Waking up
so it's
extra
really
early.
exactly. And then I've had like just since then there's been like an outpour of like different places. Like Namibia, for example, we're going in November, and I'm so excited about this itinerary because I haven't been back since 2011. But once again, the guide that we're going with is someone that I know who lives there. He's actually a friend who we went like he's from Montreal.
Oh, cool.
Um, yeah, or he's Romanian, but like he's from Montreal, so like we knew each other since elementary school. He's one of my brother's good friends. And so once again, I was looking at trips and I was like, what would be something that's super incredible that I also really want to do?
Hmm.
And I feel like now in the past couple of years, Namibia has gotten like like more recognition and people are like a little bit more curious about it. In 2011, people were like,
I don't
where?
even know where that
Like,
is. Where is that? I don't know where
so
that
it's a
is.
country right on top of South Africa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So like what's the vibe? Like what kind of like trip is that?
Safari,
Okay.
like
That's
Namibia
cool.
has, yeah, I'm really, really excited. So everyone knows South Africa.
Yeah.
Namibia is a bit more untouched, but the landscape is incredible. And like when I say this trip surpassed every expectation, like I was blown away by this country. Like it has the tallest dune in the world, Dune 45, and it's just like so tall. There's just like there's so much wildlife. The food, like three of my best meals came from that country that I've ever eaten in my life. Like I was like there's just it was just overall incredible. It's way safer than South Africa.
Mm,
I've never
good
been
to
to South
know.
Africa. I'm gonna
I've
go.
been to
Yeah, I'm
North
gonna go
Africa.
this year.
Yeah, I've never been to South
Oh,
Africa either, but I've been to
yeah.
North Africa. So, a few years back, I was working as a flight attendant. So for 4 years,
Oh,
that's what basically got me
okay.
around the world for cheap. That was my hack, you
Nice.
know?
Yeah.
I was like, instead of the influencer route, like, let me just like get on a plane that can get me there for free and pay for my accommodations.
Perfect.
Same thing,
Well,
kind of. I actually have to
yeah.
work though. But no, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. It was a great 4 years. I kind of did it like in between. Like I finished university. I had studied design and all of that. I had gone to CEGEP University for that. So I had already a background. I had worked for other companies before as a designer, but I was like really burnt out and kind of tired of it.
Yeah.
And in university, I had studied a semester abroad in France and traveled all over Europe while I was there. So I came back and I was like,
Mm,
how can I keep doing this for cheap? And
yeah.
my aunt was a flight attendant for Air Canada for 32 years. She's retired now, but that kind
Okay.
of like gave me the little idea, and it was supposed to be just for a summer. I ended up staying for 4 years because it gave me so much flexibility. Like I still kept my freelance business going. So, I built up my clientele
Yeah.
there. And then eventually I figured like it just like I didn't love the job itself obviously as much. Like this was not a
Yeah.
forever thing and I had my passion for design. So I kind of went back to that and then launched Nomad Creative, my business in 2018, and then now have built a team and a creative agency so that basically gives me the opportunity to travel and
Yeah.
like do all of those things without having to like operate the flight.
That's so cool though, because like my mom was always the one in the family who was like, go out, travel, do what you
Yeah.
can, blah blah blah. Like work at a bar, make money, make the tips.
Hmm.
And like I was like, no, 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 like I'm not working at a bar, I'm not doing this. She pushed being a flight attendant so much on
Oh
me
yeah.
when she saw how much I love to travel. She was like, you should be a flight attendant. You should be a flight. And I was like, ew, no. Like, and now I'm like, what was wrong with me? Like, I was like, now I'm like, yeah, I would do it. Like, yeah, of course. Like, probably not the best having to deal with people all the time in that sense. Like
It's
everyone's
not the
just like,
most luxurious job, like,
yeah.
but there are a lot of
But I was
benefits.
like, but I was like, what the hell? Like that would have been an amazing way to see the world. And so one of my
Mhm.
girlfriends worked for Emirates and she was trying to get me out to Dubai. She's like, Lisa, like work for Emirates, work for Emirates, work for Emirates. And I went through the whole interview process. And this was before social media like really took off for me. It was like
Okay.
it was almost a blessing in disguise that it didn't work because then it gave me this opportunity and I landed my first press trip and it was like my first press trip and it was paid and I was like, wait, have I made it? Like it was just like it was so cool. Like I was the smallest one on the trip. I had 10K. I was like, this is crazy that it's my first one and it's paid. Um, but yeah, like it was like I went through the entire interview process with Emirates, got through everything. And at the last stage, she was like, don't tell them that you have a tattoo. And I got
Oh,
so
but
nervous
you can
because
cover that. You can cover that because with
yeah,
us
but
too, we had to cover it.
it's on my foot and the shoes that you had to wear. Like, so for all of the interviews, I had covered it with makeup and nobody saw anything. And I was already in the process of removing it because I didn't like it
Hmm.
really. And at the last stage, like they were like going through the rules and they were like, if you have any tattoos, you will be in severe trouble, blah, blah, blah. You'll get like sent home, all this stuff. And so I panicked. And so I was like, I have one, but I was like, but I'm in the process of removing it. Like you didn't even tell this. And I've been on 5 interviews. You haven't been able to tell once. Like, blah, blah. And then they were like, no, you're cut. She was like, why did you tell them?
Stop. I can't believe it.
I was like, I can't lie. I'm so sorry. I'm such a bad liar.
Well, you didn't have no, but I can't believe that they would have, and especially on your foot. Like, don't you wear nylons? You know,
You wear nylons and you wear shoes, but like just they're
that's
just
so
so
silly.
strict. Like, like Emirates is so particular. Like, you go to school for like how to do your lipstick and your hair, and you get like
Yeah,
checked for everything. Like,
yeah,
like Air Canada, WestJet, like those
a
are
little
like way more
sloppier.
slack.
Yeah,
You can wear whatever jewelry you want. Like
they
in
no, they
Emirates,
do
like
have.
you have to have like red nails. I think.
Oh,
I
red
think it's
nails.
like clear, white, red, or French. And
No,
that
we
was
had
like the same when
rules.
I worked at Michael Kors. It was the same. Oh, you did?
Yeah, no, we did. We did. They just weren't as like intense. So we had to wear I worked for Air Canada Rouge, not Air Canada, though there are like
Hmm.
similar rules. I think Air Canada actually had a little bit more flexibility with certain things than us. But we had to
Oh,
wear our
surprising.
hair in a low pony, like it always had to be pulled back in a low pony or bun. And our nails too, it was like red or neutrals or like a French
Okay.
manicure. At one point, they weren't even allowing our Apple watches. Like it had to be a gold or silver watch. Like they wouldn't allow if you had like a black
Yes.
watch or anything like
Yeah.
that. And then same with the tattoos. Our tattoos had to be covered, but they had like they gave us resources. There's like sleeves that you can put on. It basically looks like you're wearing like nylon on your arm. So if you have like a sleeve or something, I mean, in my opinion, that looks
Wow.
worse than just like showing your tattoos.
Yeah.
But I mean, whatever. It's just like it's kind of like old school, and I think
It's just it's so old school because
they've
it's like
shifted
we're
things since.
2023. Like who
Yeah,
doesn't have a tattoo? Like
yeah,
I
me.
just think it's so common. But yeah, you don't have
I
any.
don't. I know I'm a tattoo
It
virgin,
it took
but
me so long to get new ones. Like after I was getting like I literally went 2 days ago to get this one removed. I'm still working on it. But
still,
yeah, like
like
because I stopped because when you
okay,
start traveling, like you can never be tanned. And then I was like always tanned. I was
yeah, because it
living
burns
somewhere
your
warm, so like
skin. Yeah,
yeah. And
you know.
now like all my tattoos are like so fine line.
No, so when
So
I met my now husband Ryan, it's been like 12 years that we're together. So we met when we were like 18, turning 19, and he had
oh
no
wow.
tattoos. He had no tattoos. Now he has like a sleeve and a half, like one whole arm done. The other half of the other, he's like working on his second sleeve. He has a bunch on like his like knees, his thighs, his chest, and I'm just like, all right, Justin Bieber, take it easy.
Yeah.
I'm like, there goes all our money.
Yeah, I know they're so expensive.
No,
They're
whatever. Like
so
if
expensive.
that's what he wants,
But
like listen, let him do it. It makes him happy. I don't care.
yeah, they're so expensive. But I will say, like I was saying on stories yesterday, because I was showing that I was getting my tattoo removed. I was like, first of all, it hurts so much more than getting it done. So like
Yeah.
really think hard about wanting it. And then also like I got this one when I was 18. Didn't do any research over the artist. I think I paid $30 for it. So I'm like,
Classic
no.
first tattoo.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, like, no, no, no. So I'm like, please do your research, pay good money because this thing is
Yeah.
on you for life and it hurts like a bitch to get it off.
Yeah, my sister's been trying to remove one of hers for a while now too, and it's been
Yeah.
painful. And honestly, I think she had gone and like redone it and retouched it a bunch of times over the years because it was like fading in different spots. So I feel like that's made it
Oh,
even worse in trying to take it off. Like she's
it
been
was like
having a
so,
lot of
yeah,
trouble. Yeah, they haven't been like super successful. They were like, I don't know what they tell you, like 5 sessions to start. She probably went to like 10 and it's
yeah.
still there, you know?
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Anyways,
Oh.
I might be making those numbers up, but I remember her saying something along those lines.
Uh, if she's in Montreal, give her like I went to this place. It's the same place that does like my Botox and stuff, but they have like a new laser,
Okay. We'll talk
so it
after. I'll
hurts,
ask.
but yeah, exactly.
I'll give her the information. Okay, let's go back to the trips. We went a little off
Yeah.
track here. So number one, what is the next trip that is planned and available for people to come on? And like tell me a little bit about like the details, what they can expect when they arrive, about the overall experience. Like I feel like we
Yeah.
have a pretty good just on, I guess, like the
Mhm.
essence of the trip, but just like from you, I guess let's hear some specifics.
Yeah. So I always say the trips, like the reason why they started was I was getting a lot of people saying like, "Oh, you're so lucky, like you always get to travel with like your best friends. Like I never have anyone to go with me. My boyfriend hates taking photos, blah blah blah."
Oh, that's a
And
classic.
so, right? And so these trips, I always say like these trips will help you connect with like your travel besties.
Hmm.
So it like just brings like-minded people together. And the coolest part for me is to see people who've met on the trip create this bond and then go off and travel together like way after the
After.
trip is done.
Yeah, so
Like
cool.
this year, two girls were just in Europe together. One's Australian, one's from Montreal. They met in Europe. One came to Canada. Like they're just like they're all over the place. So it's so fun to
Yeah.
watch like these girls and guys. I mean, some of them have all met like these. There was three guys on our last Egypt trip, and it was incredible because it mailed. I love a women's trip. We get deep, we cry. Like there's just like so much bonding. But there's
Hmm.
something different when there's a little bit of male testosterone,
Yeah.
which makes it really fun. It's
Yeah.
like it makes the dynamic really really fun.
A cool
And so like
balance.
some
Yeah.
of them all met up. They all met up in Mexico. They went to Tulum, and one girl came from Tulum, girl came from Alaska, one guy came from Minneapolis. Like it was just like really cool. Um, but the next trip that I have is in Mexico, and it's a free diving trip, which I'm really excited to share free diving with people because that I think I was telling people the other day on Instagram stories. Free diving, like I don't think I spoken enough about like how much it like saved my mental health. Because it just there's something so freeing and so just like peaceful about being in the water, and it's different than with scuba. You've got so much like equipment to worry about and think about.
Mhm.
Free diving is something that I can constantly improve on because it's my own breath. So it pulls in a lot of like meditation, breath work as well.
Oh,
And so
interesting.
I'm really excited. Yeah. So
Wait,
the
I have a
first time I
question
went
about that. I
free.
have a question about free diving
Mhm.
because so like 'cause I read the other day you posted something about like being able to hold your breath for 3 minutes, which like to me it's like, well,
Yeah.
drown might as well just drown me, you know. So like obviously you train to do that, but I tried scuba diving for the first time in my last trip to Bali, and to be honest, like I wasn't a huge fan, and I think it has to do with the fact that I just wasn't properly like coached into like doing it. Like honestly,
Mm.
he taught us like what we were supposed to do on the boat ride on the way to the destination, and it was like Ryan and I, and he like dunked us in the water,
No.
and I
Yeah,
already
no.
have, yeah, exactly. So and I already have kind
I
of
feel like that would
sensitive
make me
ears.
more anxious.
But listen, I'm one of those people that's just like, oh, whatever, throw me in the water, yeah, I'll figure it out. But
Yeah.
he kind of, but it's also important because you don't want to blow your ears. And I already had sensitive ears
Yeah.
because I had spent so much time flying.
Right.
And so it's like obviously it's the opposite because we're going down, but it's still that pressure. And so he explained what you're supposed to do, but I don't think we got like no, I don't think I know we didn't get like the full brief. So I had a harder time like adjusting, and anytime I would go down, I'd have to come up and then go down, and it just took forever to get down because my ears kept like hurting. Whereas like
Yeah.
Ryan was perfectly fine and he's like, I love this. I can keep doing this. I don't know, whatever. He's natural. So when you're going
There's
down,
so many things. Like guys have bigger like ear drums or
oh,
ear pockets, so
really?
it's a little bit easier for men.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, there you go. That, and I feel like he has
I
like
know.
big
So
ears.
just say that it's not that he's better. Just say like
He
because you
just
have
has
like
bigger
bigger
eardrums.
ear hole. Yeah, like I don't even know if it's the drum, but yeah, I had trouble. So I am scuba certified.
Yeah.
I got it done when I was traveling in Thailand, and I loved it so much. And then in 2020, I broke my ankle, developed a blood clot, and they were like, "Scuba's out for you. Like it's
Oh
too
shit.
dangerous because the air in the tank is too compressed that you can risk clotting again." And so I
Mm.
was like, well, fuck, like what am I gonna do next? Because like that was my favorite part of traveling was going to dive. And like anybody will tell you, since I was a kid, like I've always been like a fish, mermaid in the water,
Were
like
you on like the swim
literally.
team? Were you at the pool? Were you one of those kids?
I was, but I was on the swim team. I did them all. I did swim, synchro, but like my favorite
Okay.
was dive team. I was on
Oh, there you
diving.
go. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Thanks, mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or mom and
I was
dad.
always diving. My mom was like, "You were fearless." Like 2 years old, I was on the high diving board, and they were like, "Are you sure?" And I was just like, "Yeah." I would do this
Love that.
Pocahontas dive. I called it the Pocahontas dive, and I still do it to this day. My mom's like, "Oh, there's Poca dive." And I just like would like put my arms out like to the last second and then dive. I would just
Oh,
like
that's so
it looks like
cute.
I'm about to belly flop.
I did the
Um,
high diving board too. I like that, but I feel like I was like more I had I don't know, more courage then than I do now. Like once you get older, you're like
mm,
you have like more fear that like gets developed in some weird way. Like
yeah,
why?
I was insane as a child. Like my mom, like we went back to like years ago, like we went back to like the first house that we lived in.
Okay.
And my mom always talks about how I would stand at the top of the stairs and I would jump to the basement. There was like
How?
probably 11 steps. I looked
Wait.
at it as an adult and I was like, there's no way
Did
in
you put a
hell I would
mattress?
do that.
Did you put a mattress or something?
No,
Just like landed on the
no.
floor?
I would just land on my feet. My mom was like, "You were nuts." And like, I was like, "How did I get to that?" And she was like, "You know, like you would start with one step, two steps, and then you built yourself up and you went all the way." And so I would just spend my time doing that. And I was like,
Parkour in the
"You
house.
didn't think you, yeah, like you didn't think it might be dangerous, might break an ankle." Like my parents were so like
Yeah.
let her live.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, like good for
Um,
them because whatever. You survived, right? I think
yeah,
that's kind of like a fun parenting model. I feel like I'm going to be like in between like the I don't want to be the like annoying helicopter anxious whatever, but I can see my
yeah,
personality kind of going that route, but I kind of live my life as like a little more like laid back. I don't really care, make the mistakes, take the risk, so like it might be a balance because
yeah.
like having a kid it's a totally different world and like now
Hmm.
you have to pay attention to this kid's life. So you might have to care a little more than you care
Yeah,
about yourself.
I know. I think it's like different with like well, I was the oldest, so it's shocking that they were so like laissez-faire with me.
Mm,
But yeah, like my mom's just kind of like we were never allowed like video games and stuff as kids.
same.
We never like we begged as for like a PlayStation or Xbox or whatever. My mom's like, "No, get outside,
Yeah,
climb a tree, scrape your
same.
knees." Like I'm
Same.
not buying you that.
Yeah. I
And
we
so, but I'm like, yeah, I would be the same as a parent. I'd be like, absolutely not. You're not spending like you're on your phone so much these days. And my mom was like, no, get out.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah. But going back to
Yes.
diving.
Wait, but like my main question though
So
was when you're free diving, like do
yeah,
you have to do the same like breath work and pushing or whatever when you're going deep into the water? Because it must still hurt your ears, right?
yeah. So I actually had a really difficult time with like understanding free diving because I had done scuba first, and they say like when you're a scuba diver, it's kind of harder for you to get into free diving because you have to
Okay.
almost unlearn because in scuba diving, so when you're deflating your BCD, you're going down like this. So like the water's here and you're going down like your head is straight up. When you're free diving, you're inverted. And so
Mm,
like with scuba, like you walk, talk, breathe standing this way naturally. So like your throat is like this normal.
right.
When you're inverted in free diving, our tendency is to look like this because you want to see where you're going. But like it's so hard for you to breathe
Right.
if your neck
Neck
is like
is
this. So you
extending.
want to
Yeah.
keep so as much as you want to look at where you're going in free diving, you're like you've got to keep your head like this, or else like you won't be able to equalize properly. And so that was the biggest thing that was like my biggest block with my ears was that I was constantly like that. And they would be like,
Stretching your neck
no,
up.
bring
Yeah,
your
you have
neck
to be
down.
more like
Yeah.
straight. Okay, yeah.
And so I couldn't get past like 10 meters because I couldn't equalize.
Okay, so how
And
far
so the
can you go
second that I
now?
figured, I haven't done it in a while, but I'm at like 20 meters.
What, like, I guess scuba diving, there is no limit really, because I mean, you could go forever
Yeah.
ish, not
And
really
that's what I
forever.
love about freediving is like, so I've stopped at 20 meters. I know that I have more air in my lungs and I can go deeper because the first time that I did freediving, I was saying like I did 30 seconds and it's like you just lay in a pool like head down like as if you were like dead in the water. And the first time I did it, it was like 30 seconds and I came up and I was like
Yeah, panicked.
because you initially get that
Yeah.
like that feeling and then you're like okay I'm done, but you learn in freediving that that's just like a natural reaction because your body is so used to breathing on a like normal basis, but you have so much more air in your lungs so it's a little bit uncomfortable, but if you push past that like initial like contraction
Hmm.
you have so much air in your lungs, so that's how you can
Really
go deeper. Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to take people back and to show them like I know that it's a very niche thing, not everyone wants to do it, but like
Hmm.
I actually think that it's helped me so much in my personal life because it's incorporated like meditation and breath work into my practice
Yeah.
in a way that like I don't really love to like just meditate like on my own. But
Hmm.
when I'm underwater, it's such a meditative state. It's so peaceful. And it's the only time where like my mind will actually go blank. Where like with scuba, you're still thinking of all of the things that you're holding, checking your air, everything.
Yeah.
With freediving, it's just like peaceful and I'm just like appreciating the nature that's under there, especially in the cenotes in Mexico. They're so beautiful.
Hmm.
And so I'm excited to share that with people um, because it's just like it has helped me become more confident in the water, like just in general in the ocean. You know,
Hmm.
like waves can be so unpredictable.
Yeah.
And when I was in Bali, I was doing a photo shoot on like a photo shoot and I got pummeled by waves and I was under for like at least three waves. Like it was probably like a good minute I was underwater because and it was my experience with freediving that kept me calm, knowing that I had more air in my lungs than I did. And I was able to like keep my heart rate low and stay calm during
Right.
that because had I have I would have overexerted myself trying to get up and then I would have gotten pummeled by more and more waves. So I
Mm.
actually think for anyone who like just loves traveling and being in the water in general, it's such a useful thing to have because it just makes you more confident as a swimmer.
Yeah, to like understand like your breath and your capacity and stuff. Yeah, because that's a big thing.
Yeah,
Like being trapped underwater is freaking frightening.
it's scary. It's
Yeah.
really scary. And like, especially even for me, and I would say that I'm a pretty advanced swimmer and diver. Like I feel really confident in the water and taking people. And it's through like years of loving being in the water and then doing scuba, doing free diving, just like, you know, practicing. And the reason why I love it is that like, it's something that I can constantly improve on. So the more
Hmm.
that I focus on my breath, the more that I can improve, the more that I can expand my lungs, the more that I can go deeper with my dives. Yeah, with scuba, like you're really limited to whatever air you have. So it's not like something
Right.
that you can improve on.
Hmm.
So I do really like it. And we have
Fun.
so many more trips this year too, but that's the next one coming up in September.
Okay,
And
cool. Are
then
there still spots
October, there
left?
is
Can people still join if they want?
there's still spots on all of the trips. There's a few spots. I think Namibia is the one that has the least amount of spots left. There might be three spots left. But there's still spots on Egypt and Jordan are both in October. So Egypt first, there's like a 5 day break where people, if they want to do the add-on option to go to Siwa, which is the salt flats or like the salt pools,
Oh, cool.
they can do that as well. And then we go to Jordan. Some people are booked on both, which is going to be really fun. And then Namibia in November, which is like
Nice. So,
African summer.
oh, perfect. Oh, yeah, because November, that's like kind of
Because
shitty
I've
for
been in
us here.
August and it was so cold when we
Oh,
went in
really?
Namibia in August because it's their winter.
Interesting.
And so we didn't think about that. We were like, oh, we're going to be in Africa. Like, it'll be fine freezing. Like, we needed puffer jackets and like for the safaris, because like safaris are mainly like sunrise and sunset.
Yeah.
and it was cold. But this time the weather will be pretty good, and it's November is the best time of year to see wildlife. So I'm so excited.
Yeah, that's going to be great. A lot of good like photo opportunities too, I'm sure. So what's
Oh
covered though?
yeah.
Are like do people pay for their flights? Is it covered in the ticket price? What about like food, accommodations? Like what's included in your packages? What can people expect in terms of like a monetary
Yeah.
investment too? Like how much on average are these trips?
So the trips on average depends on the destination. But let's say Namibia will be the most expensive one. That one's 4,100 USD. And then what is included, so you are responsible for your own flight,
Okay.
just because depends. Everyone's coming from different parts of the world. Sometimes the visas for different countries are different. So it's just everyone takes care of their own flight. When you get there, all your transportation is covered, all your accommodations are covered, some of your meals are covered. Some of them I leave open, just because in feedback from people, some people want to go
Try
have their
different
own free
things.
time to
Yeah.
go explore different things.
Mhm.
Like it's a lot to go as a group for dinner
Everywhere.
every
Yeah.
night. Like it's
Mhm.
long to get like such a large group served to different tables. So like this way it allows people to explore a little bit on their own,
Mhm.
and try different things. Some of the excursions are included, like it depends on where we're going, but like any entrance fees to any cenotes, monuments, temples, anything like that is covered. And then on certain trips, we do have different add-on options. So for Egypt, there's an add-on option to do the White Desert. Sorry, not the White Desert. In Egypt, there's an add-on option to do Abu Simbel, which is one of my favorite temples I've ever experienced. But it is farther out, so it's a 4-hour drive. So we leave at
Mhm.
sunrise. We get there right at like 9 or 10 a.m. and it's just incredible. Like last year, I brought 40 people to Egypt, and it was a hunt. Like for both of the add-ons,
40.
it was 100%. Yeah, I
Wow.
had two back-to-back trips,
Crazy.
and both add-ons were full attendance. So one of them is Abu Simbel, and one of them is a hot air balloon ride. And
Oh,
everyone
that's
said that
cool.
those two experiences were highlights of the trip. It was so amazing.
I love
Yeah.
that. I've never been in a hot air balloon before. It's definitely on my list.
Oh, it's so fun. And especially doing it like there, because you're overlooking like the view is the Valley of the Kings, which is where all the tombs are, and
Oh.
Hatshepsut Temple, which is like the Valley of the Queens.
Hmm.
It's just like it's so beautiful, and I'll show people videos, and they're like, "That's Egypt." Like you don't
Yeah, you
realize like
wouldn't think.
there's so much like yeah, on one side there's like so much greenery and like farms, and people are like, "There's that much green in Egypt," and then on the other side it's like all
Oh no, what did you do?
I just spilt
Did you
water
make a
all
mess?
near the computer.
Do you need to
I
clean it?
did.
Do you need to clean it?
No, I think it's paper. It's just papers. I'll fix it in a minute. We'll go.
Are you sure?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You got so excited, you just flopped your hands over and knocked over your
I know.
water.
I get really excited about these trips. Join
Everyone
me. I'm
take
such a
note.
scatterbrain.
She's gonna give you the best time ever.
Yeah, but they are like really, really incredible. And every time I get comments and they're like, I don't understand how you do this. Like some of the people the second trip, because I did two back to back to Egypt, it was
Hmm.
like day 4 and they were like, we're exhausted. Like you've been doing this for like 2 weeks straight now. Like how on earth are you doing this? And I'm like I will never show someone that I'm tired. Like I will be
Yeah.
exhausted on the inside, but I will never show that I'm tapped out because it like those I just like I thrive off of that energy. I just love it. I love getting people excited. I love showing people new destinations. I love exploring. I love meeting new people. So like I will crash hard when we get to the hotel room.
Yeah, but you're also
And
because you're
after
leading the group. You're leading the group and you kind of like help set the energy and the tone. So it's super important, obviously.
exactly. So like so
Yeah.
you have to be
Yeah.
on. But
How
yeah,
how
like I'll
shitty would
never
it be if like
show.
your tour guide would show up and be like, "Hey, we're going here today, get in the car." Like
Yeah, like no.
not exciting.
But it's so great. But it's also so great to have guides that you really know, love, and trust. And so
Yeah,
like
because they can
there's
support you
sometimes
with that.
where
Yeah.
they can support. Like that was the biggest thing that I realized the first time when we ran trips to Mexico and Bali. It was like not having a guide made a huge like
Mm-hmm.
difference because it's all on you. versus having a guide. Like he can also kind of be like the bad guy. Like he's like, we gotta go, like everyone in the bus. Like he's a little bit more strict where I
Yeah.
could like still just like have
Be,
fun and be
yeah.
like a member on the
Mhm.
team. Um, so it's really great for that. But also like when I'm like, I'm tapped out, like I need you to like keep the energy going. They're like, all right, I'm on it. And like
Yeah, that's
from
perfect.
knowing them and like having experiences with them, like I know that they can like hold that where I'm
Mhm.
like, I need a 20-minute nap. And they're like, okay, no problem. I got this.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's a perfect little mix. So from a business perspective, people are coming, let's say they're paying around like $4,000 USD per trip. You have all of these events planned, so some of those things are included. Like how do you make your money? Like what do your margins typically look like? And like essentially like what are you bringing in regularly in order to sustain your lifestyle because you are continuously traveling, you know? I'm curious to know
Yeah.
like how much is actually covered by, let's say, the tourism boards to get you there because you're bringing the people versus how much you're actually paying out of pocket, you know, and how much of it is actually like the profitability from the trip itself.
Yeah. It depends. Like working with a guide, I feel like you can get a better, I'm gonna be like a little bit weird because I'm working on a course. So I
Okay.
don't know like how much I want to
High
go into
level.
detail about
High
this. So
level.
yeah.
Give people a teaser of what they might get from this course, you know?
Yeah. So I think it'll depend on every trip, obviously, and how much is included, how many days. So I'll break it down. And also some places are getting really like expensive. So the trip that I ran last year, the cost is not the same. Like we
Hmm.
had to bump up the cost of the trip by a couple $100s because the cost of accommodations, because since COVID, there's just been this surge. Like I think there's also like a couple of Netflix series. There's just been this surge to discover Egypt. And so the accommodations have gotten really, really pricey. And I will not like do anything less than a 4-star accommodation. So all of the accommodations on our trips are all 5-star. And that is because I've worked with third parties in the past where you have really, they just care about the bottom line. They want to make it as
Hmm.
cheap as possible. And the last time we were in Egypt, like everyone got bed bugs. It was horrible. It was awful. And working with this company was a nightmare. So I was like, I will never work with this third party again. And I don't
Okay.
recommend anyone works with them.
Hmm.
And that's when I was like, you know what? Like I have the contacts, I have the people. Let me start seeing how I can organize this myself. And so with the guides, we work together on curating this experience. And I'll tell them, I want to come this time of year. I want to budget this much per person. Like, how much is it going to cost? And so they'll give me the base cost. And then from there, you need to factor in different things. Like, I still want to make them affordable for people, but still have a luxury experience. And
Hmm.
then on the trips as well, I'll host workshops. So I'll do like how to pose in front of the camera, feeling confident. I'll give people tips on like how to use their camera. And so like you have to also factor in your time.
Of
Like
course. Yeah.
this is like Egypt is 12 to 10 days. This is 10 days out of my life that I won't be doing any brand deals. I won't be answering emails. Like I won't be, there's a lot of things that I'm like I'm
Putting on
on, but
hold.
I'm
Yeah.
off
Hmm.
for a lot of things. So you need to factor in that stuff too. So when I'm considering how much to increase it by, I factor in all of those things. I factor in if it's like a sit down workshop or if it's kind of like an on the fly workshop that I'm doing.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, to kind of come up with that bottom line.
And then are you like pricing yourself? Are you considering like your time in hours and kind of like giving yourself an hourly rate? Like how do you kind of like calculate that or because you can't just be coming, you must have some kind of system, no?
I have like I know I kind of decided from looking at the third parties and how much I was making from those trips, like how little I was making from those trips. They let you like price it yourself, but
Hmm.
give you they don't give you much flexibility. Like I wanted to price my trip at a certain price and they were like, no, like that's too high. We don't usually price trips like that. And I'm like, okay, but people are coming on a trip with me. They get 10 days of me like full attention, ask me anything. I'm an open book for 10 days. So it's like
Hmm.
a lot of people will really take advantage of that, not in a bad way. Like I would be taking advantage of it too. Like you have uh someone that you look up to here, maybe it's your favorite influencer or whatever, like ask them all the questions that you want. So we'll go over like like your, like I'll review someone's blog and give them tips on the blog, or give
Mhm.
them posting
No, for
tips, give
sure.
them
Like
tips
you
on how
have
to work with
value.
brands.
That's it. You're bringing value 100%.
100%. You need to think about that. Like I'm having a conversation with one of the girls who was on the Egypt trip yesterday, and we had a call. And so like that's the thing, is like I won't charge these people for the call for it, because like they've already been on a trip with me. For someone else, like yes, I would,
Hmm.
but they become part of this like community where we have a friendship and I want to support them and stuff. And so we were talking about, really finding what you're good at. And she really wants to get into the influencing side, but doesn't necessarily have the following just yet. So she's doing a lot of UGC, and I connected her with a friend's company, and she's been doing UGC for this brand and making like some passive income on the side, which is incredible.
Nice.
But I have a bottom line as to like a dollar amount. Like I don't want to give up 10 days of my time for anything less than $1,000
Hmm.
per person.
Yeah, which is totally fair and makes sense. Because if you're thinking about
Because
all
a
that
thousand,
time,
like
that
that's,
$1,000 divided by that per person, given like your time, and there's also like the planning involved too, which like probably a lot of people don't consider, right? Because in running a business, I know time is money, and when we're charging by the hour, depending on the person, depending on the experience, when you
yeah,
start a project, you don't just like dive in and begin. You need to like get the information, the background. You've built these
yeah,
relationships. That has value too. And then to be able to get everybody together, keep them organized, you have the energy factor that you're bringing too, right?
yeah.
Always being there for them in whatever way that looks. You're looks like you're like a support system. You mentioned you cry sometimes on the trips. You build these connections
Oh
and
my
these
God, I cry.
relationships.
I'm such an emotional person.
Me too, me too. But so like all of these little things, so like it makes total sense, and honestly
Yeah,
good for you for taking something that you loved so much and finding a way to monetize it and like continue filling your cup.
yeah. Yeah, like you need to figure out like what will make you happy, like what is worth it for you. And so like I broke it down in the sense that like, okay, like I'm giving up this much of my time, this many days. I was like, I want to make, like, how much do I want to make per day,
Yeah, totally.
basically, you know?
Yep.
And you don't know like you don't know how many people, like let's say you sell at the retreat or the trip, depending on the spots. Free diving trip, there's only 8 spots. So this one is much smaller. Like my income on this one is going to be much smaller because I'm
Mhm.
limiting it, because it's just the amount of people that can be in the water per instructor. So
Wait,
we have two
question.
we have two instructors.
Are
Mhm.
you like so when you're on these trips, are you also considering like your costs to do all of the things and the accommodations, or is that
Yeah,
technically covered in their like fees and stuff for like your time? How is that separate?
it's covered
It's
in
covered.
them.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, because you're also bringing these
Yeah.
hotels like 20 people. So you're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, okay, so like you can work with them on that sense. So
Mhm. Different
like
ways to negotiate. Hmm.
there's different ways to negotiate, like the incredible property that we have in Mexico for the free diving retreat. It's a stunning penthouse.
Oh,
And so like we're
sick.
all together in this one place, but like I've also worked with them in the past in promoting them, because in living in Mexico and buying real estate in Mexico, I've gotten so many questions from people saying like, "Hey, I'm really curious. I have like X amount of money. I'd love to invest in a second property. Can you coach me a little bit on that?" And so I kind of not knowingly started it as like a side business also, was like connecting people and selling people projects in Mexico
No way.
to invest in. So it ended up being really cool. So like I'll make a little bit of a commission if I sell someone a condo.
A little like referral.
Um,
Yeah.
exactly. So for like the project that I purchased in, there's a couple of people who've purchased in the same project as me. The one that we're staying in for the free diving trip is actually a project that I looked at purchasing myself. And I've worked with them before, and they want more promotion on their property. So they were like, hey, we'll give you a deal if you can kind of help us sell some units and promote our project on social media. So it's like it works hand in hand. The property's beautiful. I was like, of course, I want photos and videos here anyways.
Hmm.
So there are different ways to work it out to add value to these trips and add value to the hotels, and rather than just paying flat out. A lot of them I still pay like these trips are cheap to organize.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the reason why the cost is so high. And I feel for Canadians because I get mentions all the time being like, like it's in USD, like the dollar is not so
Mm,
great. It's hard for Canadians. And I totally can empathize with that, but it's so hard because all of these companies and all of these, like,
that's what
everywhere,
they
like
operate
even
in.
in
Yeah. That's what they use.
Egypt works in USD,
Yeah.
Mexico works in USD. Like, so it's like, it sucks for me too. Like, I'm a Canadian, and even though my business operates in USD, at heart, like, you
You,
always convert
yeah.
in your head.
Yeah.
And so, like, I get it and I feel for people. And that's why I really try. I could be pricing these trips so much more. And that's the comment that I get from people after the trip. And also, like, the guide in Egypt, he's like, I work with people who price these trips way higher. And I'm like, but I still want it to be affordable for people. I want people to have such an incredible experience. And they're like, that was worth every penny.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I would pay more. And so each year, like, yes, they might get a little bit more expensive, but that's also the cost of inflation.
Yeah, but it's also
And
like the
so,
cost of your experience. Like you're building that reputation and that brand for yourself. And like, who's to say that it's not just you moving forward and like you get a partner and like you could expand like the,
and it opens so many doors.
yeah.
Like, people wind up meeting their travel buddies. So, like, that is priceless in itself. Like, I will still, like, reach out to these people. Hey, you want to travel with me? Like, 2 weeks ago, I brought one of the girls from my Egypt trip. One of her biggest goal bucket list places to visit was Canada. I was like, for real?
But
Yeah.
Canada
And
does have
so,
some beautiful places. Yeah.
well, exactly. So I was going to Banff, and I was like, oh, like, they'll let me bring a plus one. So I asked her, I was like, hey, I know your goal is to visit Canada. Do you want to come on this trip with me? So it's fun because we all stay connected, and,
Yeah.
like, it gives you, like I will bring you on trips. I'll introduce you. So, like, now she's been introduced to the Fairmont property. She really wants to work with them. So it's just like, it's an incredible community that we create where, like, we can still constantly give back to one another.
Yeah.
And so I
No,
feel like that's also factored into the cost of the trip, is like, you get access to all of these things, and then you get this, like, community of people who not only want to travel with you, but will, like, are so open and willing to, like, share contacts and tips and, like, whatever you want to get
yeah.
from these people. Um, and everyone's got something to share. There's graphic artists, there's people who are so incredible at blogs. There's this guy who's teaching me all about, like, Amazon drop shipping. Like, there's just, like, everyone's got knowledge from something else. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's so fun.
Yeah, no, I can relate. When I was studying abroad in France, I was living with, God, I think I had 5 or 6 roommates. But it was like a big, like loft situation. Honestly, it was really, really
Okay.
nice. It was really nice. And like the way we had like a big, like center layout, and all of the rooms were like on the door on the outside. So, like in the middle, we had like a gorgeous kitchen. We had a skylight and then a big living room. So that was like the common space. And we each had our own showers and sinks in our rooms, and then like 2 separate toilets. So it was
Okay.
like very like set up specifically to like have a lot of roommates, and we were the first ones to move in, so it was like really fucking nice. But anyways,
Wow.
the point is that these roommates, they were all from different parts of France. But when I was there, I went to this fine arts school, so I didn't necessarily connect with international students there, but I had befriended someone who went to the other school who had a bunch of international students. So I became friends with a ton of them. And like to this day, we're still connected. And like 4 years later, after that exchange, I
Yeah.
had gone back to Paris. I met up, a bunch of us got back together and met up with our roommates. So it's like doing these types of like trips make honestly lifelong friends, because like you said, you're with like-minded people. And you say,
Yeah.
like, I say like-minded kind of like loosely, because at the end of the day, it's like people who love to travel, who, just want to be happy and do what they love. And I know that that's like super important to you, and to preach is just like do what you love. And like I commend you for just kind of going after what it is that makes you happy, as opposed to just like sitting back at whatever job, or listening to your mom
Yeah.
and sticking with whatever career that wasn't like really bringing you that like joy every single day.
Yeah. It's not easy. I mean, like, I'm not going to sit here and say that
Yeah,
the, like, self-employed life is easy and is for everyone, because
I hear
there
you.
are times where I have self-doubt, and I'm like, like, maybe I just want to go back to, like, a regular job and work for
Yeah.
someone, because
Mhm.
it's just like punch in, punch out. Like, I don't have to, like, be on all the time and,
Yeah.
like, feel like if I'm not posting online, then I'm, like, failing. And the comparison game is so real. And so, like,
Yeah.
there are times where, like, it's not easy. Um, But like when I really think of like the impact that I've had and the impact that it's had left on me and like where how far I've come, like I'm really happy and I'm really proud of the community that I've built and it's so much fun. But it's definitely like doesn't come with its hardships. Like,
Of course.
it's not
Nothing
easy. Like I
does.
sit here sometimes and because the money fluctuates, like that was a really hard thing for me to get used to.
Yeah.
And that was like one of the biggest things why it took me so long to leave. My job initially was like the security.
Yeah.
It's
100%. I
scary.
think a lot of like entrepreneurs struggle with that too, or like anyone who kind of goes off and chooses to do their own thing. I relate. I mean, that's why I kind of held on to Air Canada for a while. I technically launched my agency while I was still working with Air Canada,
Yeah.
because I had that security net. And then I got to a
And,
point where I was comfortable enough to leave that entirely and then just focus on my business. And
but
I've
that's
been,
so smart. Like work
yeah,
quietly as like a side hustle until like you don't have to worry anymore, but like
yeah,
keep hustling and like have that and work and just like still like reap the income and
yeah,
then
for
like have
sure.
it to fund everything else.
Exactly. And so I was lucky in that sense how like I made that transition. And I mean, it's a remote agency. It's called Nomad Creative. Like it was obviously very much inspired by like my travels and wanting me myself to be
Yeah.
able to like withhold that lifestyle and also give other freelancers the opportunity to do the same. So anyone that works for me, like they build their own schedule, they work on their own time, they take as many trips as they want a year, they can work from wherever they want, you know. They're mostly hired from Canada, but like a lot of them are working abroad because they can.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to like create a community within my own company that gives people the chance to do that because I felt like I was missing that working for other companies, brands, agencies, being like stuck in that 9 to 5, not being inspired. Like
Yeah.
as a creative, it's so hard to just be like, all right, 8 a.m., let's go until 5 p.m. and then shut down. Like that's not how our
Yeah.
minds work, you know? So yeah, I don't know. It's been cool. It's been fun, but I
That's
totally hear
awesome.
you. Yeah, thanks. I totally hear you on the like the challenges that present themselves because it's like every day, every year, your income is very much dependent on like how much effort you're willing to put in. And it doesn't necessarily mean that like every single day the output is what you'll receive back because you can also build something, you know, a company, a business, or a system that can generate income for you regularly, right? That doesn't necessarily require you to work so hard in the long run. So that's kind of
Yeah.
where I'm at is like building that team, that system so that I can remove myself, have the business operate on its
Exactly.
own, you know, and then reap the benefits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of where I'm at too with the trips is
Hmm.
I just recently started like wanting to rebrand. And so like right now I haven't like the trips haven't had like their own Instagram page. I have like they just are all promoted through my own social media. And I started to think and I was like, okay, like what if we get to a point where like these trips are really successful and I still want to run them like as a company, but
Hmm.
I might not be able on them. And if I'm not on them, it makes them much more affordable as well because you're not like you don't have my time. I'm just paying the guide, but you don't have like me there. And so like that's something that I was starting to think of is like, okay, what are we gonna call these trips? And so I'm working on like
Oh,
branding
fun.
and yeah, it's gonna be really fun. But yeah, it's definitely something that I've thought about because I think it's just as much as they're like by me, at a certain point, I want them to be able to like stand on their own.
Yeah.
Um,
But they're still by you.
and
That's the thing. It's like you've still
they're
built that
still,
brand. It has your stamp and your mark, and like you still went and
yes,
chose all of the things and catered the experience. And like if you're saying that those guides like represent like a part of you so well, then they can continue to do that. And maybe there's another,
for
you know,
sure.
person similar to you who also has influence or whatever that can step in, if not just like the
Yeah.
guide.
Exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. Like I think I would always have someone else who I feel like I've vetted properly, who
Hmm.
maybe understands the social game a little bit more so that they can
Yeah.
help with content, whether it's like a photographer who's like the trip leader or another influencer who wants to host trips but doesn't know or doesn't want to build them themselves and they can
Wait,
come
I
to me
have
and
an
like we
idea.
kind of like funnel that. Yeah,
Wait, because I mean, you can almost do like, you know how brands have started to do like collabs with influencers? You can almost just
exactly.
do that with your trips. It's like they bring
Yeah,
their following. So it's like a lot of the marketing
exactly.
a lot of the marketing kind of falls on them too, you know, and it also gives them incentive to promote it because they're going to make money on each person that's coming. So that takes your responsibility on like the marketing away. Mind you, you'll still do it as the company,
Yeah,
but then you'll have their support. So it's like, it's actually like kind of a dream
exactly.
system.
Yeah, so that's why I wanted to like kind of take my name away from it is like if
Yeah.
for some reason or for whatever reason someone else wants to run a trip
Yeah.
through us. So, in saying like, okay, like this is my trip, like whether I like sell my contacts in the course or whatever, but it can be an option where it's like this is now a company that curates custom trips and custom itineraries for influencers
Yeah.
to run through their audience.
I think that's so smart because if you think about it, like people are coming a lot because they also want to be with you, right? So
Yeah,
if you think about other influencers doing that, it's like it could even be a very similar trip that you already have planned and all of, the vendors or whatever in place, collaborators on the trip, but you're switching out the influencer because the people on that trip are going to want to go because of that influencer, you know?
yeah,
So it's like as many trips as you can hold, it's also like you're kind of limited to whoever has been following you. Whereas like if you build that reputation
yeah,
with other people, then the word gets out and then it'll probably expand further past those influencers to just like general public. And then boom, you're a millionaire.
yeah.
Just like that. Easy peasy.
I wish it was that easy. Just like some fairy dust.
Honestly, a little delusion never hurt anybody. I think that way
I know,
sometimes.
right? We're fine.
We're going to be just fine. Okay, we're going to wrap
Yeah.
it up here. Before I finish the podcast, we always do what's called the mindful minute. So leaving anyone who's listening a piece of advice based on your experience thus far. But before I ask you that, I have one last question in terms of like work life balance because you're so public and constantly online. Like, how have you been able to manage that? And is there anything that you do specifically to disconnect or to have like time that's not public?
I think I've gotten better at that over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I've gotten better at that over the years. I was in a relationship in the past where he was not on social media, didn't have any interest on being on social media. And I was at a point in my career where I like needed to share everything. And so that was really difficult. Now in retrospect, like I look back on that and I was like, I should have like respected his space and his boundaries a little bit more because I feel like it's okay for someone to not want to be online. But back then it
Mm-hmm.
was just like you shared every detail. And so I'm a little bit more private with certain things now. I think for me, a way to really be grounded is like every time I come back to Montreal, which is where I am now, uh, that's the time like people are like, like you're not like living as much. And I'm like, yeah, I'm in like hibernation mode,
Yeah.
like I'm here, I'm
Recharging.
visiting friends and family that I can sometimes I haven't seen them in a year or 10 months or something. And so it's time for me to like do the inner work, focus on the back end of the business kind of stuff, be offline a little bit more. My parents just moved to like the country, so it's like really like lush and green,
Oh,
and so it's
nice.
more of an more of an escape. Like yeah, they're like really far, they're in Saint Lazare, so they're like
Yeah.
far out, but
In the
they're
woods.
um, in the woods exactly. But it's so nice to like be in nature, reconnect, and just like not feel like I have to be on camera all the time. Like most days I got ready for you, but most days I'm like no makeup, hair in a bun, like
That's my life.
just like on the
Majority of the
computer
time.
all day.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I want to watch Netflix, I watch Netflix, but like like trying to like enjoy instead of like constantly
Yeah.
working, but it's hard. It's hard when like your phone doesn't stop going off, and that's the thing that has been a little bit more like, well, like I wonder if I got a 9 to 5, it's nice, and you actually have weekends, so like,
Yeah.
so you don't like doesn't mean that you're not getting messages and stuff on those. So that's the hardest part is to separate and like,
Hmm.
not respond. Like you're so
Yeah.
programmed to respond right
That's it.
away, but
Yeah.
then it never allows you to step away. So for me, I've been taking like evenings off, like 8 p.m. I like sit down with my like now, especially now that I'm here visiting my family, I like sit down with my parents, we watch a show or we cook dinner together or something, and
Mhm.
that's time where typically if I'm living in Mexico or something, like I have a podcast on while I'm cooking, or I have music on, or I'm listening to audio recordings that someone's telling me, I'm commenting, I'm watching, like, like I'm
Yeah.
still doing things,
Yeah.
like I'm multitasking, whereas
Yeah.
now I can actually like cut off, and it's nice.
Yeah, for sure. I honestly, so I have the Apple Watch, and that thing is like literally always just like buzzing. I started turning off
Oh
certain
yeah.
certain notifications to like only be bothered with if there's like an email or a phone call that comes through, because those are kind of like the more important things. But then at the end of the day, it all comes off and I leave it in my room. So like when I cook and watch TV, sometimes I'll go back and check, like sure, I'll click the phone, whatever, see
Yeah,
what's going on. But for the most part, like I've been trying to just like leave it, because like I'm always connected. And when you have your own business too, you feel like a certain responsibility. But like the one thing that I've been kind of trying to teach myself is that
exactly.
like nothing is so urgent that you need to stop everything to not enjoy your life and have a relaxing evening that you need to answer. Like that email can wait.
Yeah.
That person's life is not depending on your answer to that email. And when I first started my business, it was all just urgency, just like answer right away. Can't let them wait for too long. Like, uh, have to
Exactly.
make sure it's the right response and this and that. And it's like you're working till 11 p.m. and it's like, but why am I doing this? For
I
what?
know.
Like, you don't like work to live, or not live to work. Work. What's
Yeah.
the saying? You don't live to
Yeah.
work. You work to
You
live.
ex
No, I don't even believe that.
No, opposite.
I don't even know.
Yeah,
The
you work
point
to live.
is, the point is, I want to
Yeah.
work. I don't want to even work. I don't want it to be like survival. I want to love what I'm doing too. So it's like, preach
Yeah.
doing what you love. And I mean, I know that not everyone's in the most fortunate situation, and sometimes you have to do things that you don't love so much, but find the little joy in what you're doing, whether it's, if you're outside doing yard work and that's your job, like maybe you really enjoy like the peace of the nature sounds, or like the smell of the flowers,
Yeah.
like just like the little things. And I think that like
Yeah.
everyone can do better, and no matter what they're doing, and just kind of like enjoying and disconnecting.
Yeah.
All right.
Agreed.
Do you have anything you want to leave people with before we say goodbye and tell them all where to find you in terms of like advice?
I think um I think a piece of advice that I think is really valuable is like don't be afraid of failure. Like there are times like I've had to cancel trips because they didn't sell. And like that's a huge shot to like the ego. And it
Yeah.
obviously makes me question like, shit, like am I in the right business? Should I just like close up shop? That's it, I'm done. They don't, but it was also a really great learning experience, towards like building a trip to a destination that I thought people really, really, really wanted to go to. And now it's like I was launching a trip to Italy, and I still get a lot of questions about going to Italy, but I hadn't been back to Italy in years. I had zero content from Italy. So it's really hard for me to promote a trip if people can't see, if they don't see me there, if they don't like, they're like, bitch, have you gone
Yeah.
and like done all this? So I'm like, so like I was just in Italy, and I'm like, okay, now like I've been, I know the area a little bit. I'm like making the connections here and there. I would probably go back again before I launched it. But like you just automatically think like, oh, Europe, duh, like no brainer. Everyone wants to go to Italy. Let's do this cooking class. Let's do this. It'll be great. But I didn't have the content to back it up.
Hmm.
And so that was like, I felt really embarrassed having to like cancel that trip. And I was like, oh God, like I feel like such a failure.
Yeah.
But it was a great learning experience for me to like really hone in on listening to what my audience wants, and not just like, yes, like some people were saying that they wanted to go there, but like also I just really wanted to go there. And I felt like
Yeah.
I was like, I can sell it.
Hmm.
But there's only so much like talking you can do. And I feel like I really need the content. So that's why I'll always go to a destination like a year prior, collect all the information, collect the content, everything. And then I feel like I can properly have a really solid launch.
Hmm.
Um, and it's okay. Like I think that I got like some really, really valid learnings from that trip failing. And it's not to say at all that I will never launch Italy again. I think that there's still opportunity, there's still demand for it. But I think I had to get really clear on like the time of year, the why I was launching, the who I was launching to,
Yeah.
and just really making sure that I had the right, like everything built up first to back it up. And I didn't. I
Yeah.
was just like launching to launch.
There's always a
So
lesson. And like sometimes it's shitty to go through, But if you kind of go through it knowing that like you will gain something out of it, it makes it a little bit
Yeah.
easier. But
Yeah.
honestly, like I've been going through it with my business the last couple of months. I had two people leave at the same time. I had to replace them. So just like generally like changing staff, onboarding new people, making
Yeah.
the switch with like the clients, reintroducing, getting them used to our processes and it's like it's overwhelming. It's a lot. And like
Yeah.
especially when someone like leaves, it's like, well, why don't you want to stay? You know, like what like
Yeah. It's like it's not about you, but
yeah.
it's like it doesn't it's hard to not take it personally.
Yeah. And then like little things fall through the cracks because like there are so many things happening behind the scenes that now, like our clients are getting upset about things here and there. And it's like, I cried like 3 times last week because I felt bad for shit
Oh.
happening to like certain clients and accounts that I felt
Yeah.
wasn't representative of my company. So
Right.
like, but there is the lesson. Like, what do we need to do? We need to be more refined. We need to be communicate better. We need to make sure the onboarding process for the next person that leaves is more clear. And like now I have to put all these processes in place. So like you have your moment, you cry, you feel the things, and then you're like, all right, what can I do to make this better?
Yeah.
And what did I learn from
On
this? Yeah, moving on.
exactly. It's hard to like look at it as like a valuable lesson, but
Yeah,
like in retrospect, you're like, okay, like
always.
I did, maybe there was a learning out of that that I needed. So
Definitely.
yeah.
100%. It's been so good having you, Lisa. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule and visiting your family and taking the time to talk to me.
Yay.
Let everybody know where they can find you if they're not already following you, Instagram, website, all the things.
Yeah, so if you are not already following on Instagram, it's Lisa Homsy, so Homsy. On TikTok, it's the exact same thing, just with an underscore on TikTok. It's less about travel, more about like my online dating series, what it's like to date at 30, which is not easy. But it's been really fun on there. And then the blog is lisahomesy.com. And if you are interested in trips, you can find it through that at Presets by Lisa, which will be changing soon to a new name.
We'll change. Okay, rebrand coming up. Stay tuned for the
Rebrand
rebrand.
coming soon, but yeah, it'll all be it's all filtered through the Lisa Homesy website.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So, everyone, if you want to go to Mexico, Lisa is your guide for
Yes.
your next trip. Go for your free diving trip.
Mexico, Egypt, Jordan, Namibia, come. It's so much fun. I can't wait to take everyone. So
All of
yeah,
the
it's going to be a
things.
blast.
I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Until next time, bye.